anyway, there was, I put in a slide in between, maybe it would have been hidden, but I also wanted to show you something that we are doing internally, and maybe that can be shared as well. Okay, we will cover that. So see, this is, if I cover at a high level what an AI adoption journey can be. Okay, so this is what we wanted to discuss and also have an open discussion with every one of you. And maybe we'll also share a lot of things that we are doing. So this is a crux of, you can say, what we have kind of built, learning from Gartners, Foresters, IDCs, learning ourselves, learning from projects that we are doing, and also implementing ourselves. So maybe I will say one thing is that for my team, Microsoft is customer zero, because I'm sure you guys can buy whatever you want. At least my team can't buy whatever we want. We have to use Microsoft technology, build ourselves, and also use it. Right. So this is based on the adoption journey that we are driving and that we are implementing right now. And we thought we will share it as a best practice to you. The first is, of course, assessing where you stand. There can be different needs. One is, do you need AI and security? And second, is your business leveraging AI? So let me give you an example. And I know Rakesh is not in the room, but yeah. So Indigo Airlines, for example. So Indigo, if you go to on their website or if you go on their app, there's something called Sky, SKAI, right? You can do a lot of stuff, lot of bookings, lot of changes and everything using AI application that they have built for business. That does not mean they have started using AI in security for now, which is kind of restricted. And that's why I took Indigo example, because the regulator in the airline is currently imposing some restrictions on chat GPT 4.0, but that's a later thing. So the first thing is access the business need and access whether you need AI or not. That's one. Second, of course, the current readiness. Because see, for example, if I decide I need AI, that does not mean that I can start buying and implementing tools from day one. Do I have the team member? Do I have skills in my team? Do I have people? Do I have right partners? Am I compliant enough? Do I have the data to train the models in the future? And lots of things, right? The second thing is defining use cases. What do I want to do? And broadly, if you ask us, like there are a lot many categories that are available. Gartner has given 4 5 categories, Forrester. We internally define it in three ways. One is either you are doing productivity stuff, means you are improving efficiencies, productivity, time, speed, volumes, and all those stuff. Second is technical use cases, and third is business use cases. So it's always better to figure out what you are targeting, and then you can justify the investments as well, because you need to show the ROI at the end of the day. Then comes the validating of use cases, testing it out, training the models, data, and everything. Uh, then comes the interesting part. Data is the main thing that drives AI, right? So you need to ensure the data that is being used is encrypted, does not have access. Like for example, if I in my organization don't have access to HR records, basic example, I should not be able to use an AI model and access and query the AI, the HR model records, right? Because that's the basic, that's the RBAC and the access that has been established. So you need to control the data being used. You need to govern the data being used. It should not be getting leaked, the risk you are carrying, and all those things. So that then comes the security for AI part. So the third and the fourth stages are mostly to do with compliances, also ensuring that it is ethical. It should not train itself to do some damage. Unfortunately, that can still happen, but that's one thing. And lastly, it's a model at the end of the day, right? So you need to train, you need to have a feedback loop so that you can give the feedback back to AI and improve it. It will only improve with time. I think we started adopting and using AI internally around 1 year back, and still we are trying to improve it. It's still not perfect. So that feedback loop is very important. But these are, you can say, just the high level 5 steps that we are doing internally and we thought we will share with you. But maybe I would like to, sorry, maybe before I ask the team to dwell deep into best practices and the solutions that we are trying to build, maybe I would like to open up, because I don't want it to be a one-side conversation. I've just put two questions. It can be anything, right? The first thing is, are you looking to evaluate Gen AI? Are you doing something on the business side, security side? Any challenges you are seeing? Basically anything. Anyone has any points to contribute? We would be happy to listen. Quick. Yeah. Uh, have they initially? Yeah. So, see, we already use this for the lowest hanging fruit of AI by putting up a info chatbot on our home portal, right? So the problem is firstly hallucinations, right? So we've tried to overcome that through using the RAG and a knowledge base. The second problem is more, which is that what happens if a question is asked and it responds, which it is not supposed to, and which has, maybe political or socio-political or geopolitical kind of considerations. Even that we've tried to, circumvent by having input validation and output validation. But that adds, challenges of how far you can go. So we've tried to do this, but in case you have some better solutions of, that we can try. And it's already on our production portal. So we have the next journey, using our voice integration and then the ticket creations and almost, replacing the customer service completely with the AI engine. And subsequently will come the post login kind of, data exposure that we make to the chatbot to a user who is actually authenticated, through access credentials. How do we make only that database visible to that user which pertains to him and not to anybody else? This is the journey we have in mind, and of course, we keep handling the challenges. But I thought they exactly, relate to the two questions you asked. Uh, Thank you. And this was not a planted question. We will cover that point. But yes, you rightly said. So I think one thing that you were saying is the hallucination part. That is the one challenge that we are trying to do. And maybe in the next slide, before I hand it over to the team, I will also show the two biggest challenges that at least I face internally. That is totally my opinion, my learnings from the team. But yeah, anyone else, any point? Hi, is it on? Is it on? Audible? Yep. Hi, my name is Sujit Christine, Group CISO for John Spirit of Sri Lanka. First question, where are we on the adoption journey? I think the users have started adopting much. The users have started adopting knowingly or unknowingly. That's a huge risk, which we are still trying to grapple with. Because for them, it's about productivity. Whether the organization would Copilot or any other platform is immaterial. So the problem actually spins off to data governance. Thanks. Right? So putting that in context is the biggest challenge which I see, right? In terms of what's the data we have, what's the retention period, how do we handle it, who has access to it. So it is much bigger problem than the AI, right? So that's my take. Absolutely agree, sir. And if you see that way, I had two pillars specifically on governance and compliance because, and we even covered in it. I found like a metro station announcer. Yeah, my digital AI of AI is not happy. But yeah, yes, that's why the focus on pillars. And then, hi, I'm Vijay Kumar. I'm the CISO for security. I have a slightly different question. Yeah, it's not necessarily that you need to adopt. Use a lot of products, and those products silently have started adopting, taking your data and processing for way. Like LinkedIn was always doing it, Facebook probably to some extent. And last week there were reports that Microsoft is using our Word, Excel, all those data also, which Microsoft refuted yesterday. But I don't want to put you in a spot for that. But the question is, There are so many such products which are using, and tomorrow, say a Teams or Zoom and all that can say that I will start using your meeting data also for my AI purpose. Where all so what rights or thing do we have that our data is not used by those organizations across entities or for into theirs. Correct, correct. And see, this was without naming when we started testing it, and for one of the government only, this was the first feedback that we got. And before, for example, going into government compliance, we were we were kind of, you can say we had to do a pivot that we have to build that audit logging feature first so that we come to know where the confidential data is, who is doing using what. So that one, it can be audited also. Second, it can be controlled. And so, yeah, I agree with you. For any other, what do we as end users do? What do we as end users do? I will answer that firstly. One question on the last table. But for now, the pulse that I'm getting is I think we need to talk more about the compliance side of ours. I think so. And we don't want to go in a fixed path. We just want to see what the pulse is main, and we want to focus on this topic. One question on the last. Sorry. Well, okay. Back. So back. Send everybody running this. I did out that I did so I want you tried. But see the answer. Funny. Keep secret like the other person. Okay, I wanted to say, did it to this direction? But every video fire to the you or does fund the podcast and then I came back to the you got the idea. Yeah, absolutely. And this again, understanding the pulse comes under that compliance umbrella. But this is absolutely right. See, although we are building our own product, we don't also build everything from scratch, right? The first word in AI in Microsoft is OpenAI, the partnership that happened, right? And we have a lot of other companies, like for example, LinkedIn, they have built their own applications on AI, right? And most of you, if you go to LinkedIn and you see there is an assistant AI that comes nowadays, that is that they are built independently. So that comes for that the governance part comes, and also like for example, there is now OSEP top 10 for LLMs, the NIST framework for LLM. So that part has already started coming, and we need to ensure because, like for example, we internally are also building an application. I cannot name the application, but that we are building on AWS Bedrock. Now we need to ensure that that is also safe, right? We cannot leave that in the sideline. So that's where this whole compliance and ecosystem comes in. Yeah. Yes, correct, correct. So the concept is, see, when you are using AI as an enabler, you will be using multiple tools. That's a given. Yes. Well, that's a given nowadays with the spread that is there in the market. I will not advocate only for Microsoft, but when it comes to governing them or auditing them, that there you should consolidate. Then understanding. Correct. Correct. Well, see, this is just my opinion. Like if I was in that situation, I will consolidate at the topmost layer of the hierarchy, like where the SecOps sit, right? The detection response sit. So that is one way to do. For example, nowadays AI is there in the emails, AI is there in identity, your endpoints everywhere. Compliance is right. So the best way will be to consolidate on the top to have that consolidated view. But it's missing right now because everybody is in a build phase kind of thing. IT development. Uh, Hi, I'm Gayatri.
I lead the risk operations in Bristol Myers Squibb. I just want to share my thoughts on the challenges that we face while using the AI solutions. So most of the time, people use large amount of data to train those models. They don't even know what kind of challenges that may arise while training the models, which could even lead to kind of a data leakages. And also, there are potential security challenges as well while training the models, because they even use some of the very confidential information which they don't even know, have a knowledge on it. So sometimes, as this is going to be replaced by the humans, this also leading to the kind of a legal issues as well. These are my thoughts on thank you. Yeah.
So what you have said is a issue which can lead to hallucinations. It can also lead to data loss and exposure to unauthorized copy. For that, you need to have a governance structure at the very basic every source so that whatever outputs your data is producing in terms of training or in terms of being consumed by an AI, that is governed at source. So we cover that part before we have the input and get a view around the AI. Yeah. Uh, Hi, I'm Anand Trivedi from Cyberproof. So, as our organization is a services organization, we are primarily looking at building an army close to 25,000 people internally to train on AI. Right? So they should know AI. All our developers in it. But when we are talking to business as part of our customers, so different verticals have different challenges. So our banking customers, they are using a lot of SaaS product where AI is being adopted, and as you mentioned, everything is AI backed response. So in that sense, the challenge is the usage of the data, and will they lose a competitive edge? So even is loss of IP and loss of business critical information is a risk. When we are talking about security, when big banks and big financial organizations are building their own LLMs, so security of those LLMs and the logic is one of the critical challenges. Healthcare again has a different challenge altogether. In healthcare, they are primarily concerned about the outcome of AI and the risk, and what would it pose a legal risk to the outcomes that AI will generate and will pass on to their customers. So, depending on the vertical, there are different challenges about team. Correct. Oh, thank you very much. So at this point of time, as we are implementing AI solutions, there are a lot of governance processes being built up at the beginning when we're trying to solution. Wanted to get your perspective on what kind of monitoring capability we have, identify attacks on LLMs, like for example, prompt injection or context switching, or things like that. So how do we monitor for it and then prevent it or detect it? So yeah. So maybe we can cover that as well. Just to do a quick review. So nowadays, not only so management is then like okay. So everything's coming, and I think that the pulse that we can see is more on compliance or indeed. With the growth of AI, most of us are comfortable of using AI for ourselves, but now it's more about protecting AI, I think. So the right. Output slide that we have taken, uh, the top, see what came out from the room as well, right? Before I pause on and we get into the discussions, I just wanted to share two things. This is purely from my own experience and from my team. The two main, see, first, building AI is data testing and it is very hard. That's also we are seeing. Second, it is not deterministic. That means if, for example, all of us in the first table ask the same question in a different way, it always gives the different response. Even if you ask the same question three times, it will give you a different response. So you need to control that. You need guardrails. And I think this is one of the key challenge, at least internally in my to tackle these two things. Everything else, of course, gets taken care of. Yes, Jai. Yeah. That's yeah, the good thing about security AI or security copilot in this case is it will give you a different response kind of framing. But because for security, it is dependent on that your things. For example, yeah, that yes, I like that idea of you need that I sit down there. Doesn't take it. It's got it they but it's but out the city and so like to actually like right the crux, the core of the data will be same. If you ask twice, it might frame differently because here it is more fact driven. Third time, it might say that that's all I have to offer. So this is how it. Something so that correct. Very good point. There is a confidence score and there is a miss score as well. Like you can say that this answer was a miss or this action was a miss. This is not what I aligned. You can also give a feedback there. So there's a confidence score and there is also a non-meet or non-compliance stuff as well. Whereupon? We just run about that what is good for strikes incredible. You know, for that but you it's out and let's see the thing before is it's a good thing. All of this tower. It's this very I think I'll be against me like and you see all of that. The G it really perfect. It was so dark, but at the end out here, the golden thing it had the white kind and I got this player and everything there. Or did oh, very good point. We tested it. We have called secure score in our ecosystem. Tested this same scenario, and we see the deviation is not much, 0.5. Is it? And the only reason why that I was also listening was security. If you are those IPs and all those stuff, so 80% of the stuff is fact driven. So the deviations are very less. It can say, for example, so I have seen and it looks like a high CV. Or if you keep querying it, it might question this meet it and not go away from that core fact. Uh, let's do one. Other thing. So we are just pivoting because of the pulse. We will cover the data and compliance first, and then we go into the enabler. Yeah. Good. So Ravi is from our compliance estimating and Kanu is from security SM team. I know I've introduced them, but just a refresher again. And what we will do, understanding the questions and the points that are coming, we will cover the data governance, compliance, and risk part first, and then maybe cover the power of AI later, kind of thing. Yeah, Ravi. So yeah, so governing data is in itself a very daunting task, right? You start with data discovery or finding out what data you have in your organization itself is it's a very daunting task. I hope I'm audible at the back, right? But when we top it up with AI, where artificial intelligence can query that data or probably go through that data pretty fast and then get you the responses, then the question comes up, what is accessible by whom, in what personas, in what capacity, and where? So it becomes a much more complicated problem. Now, add more, cherry on top is the regulation.
when we talk about data accessibility processing, there are certain regulations in terms of privacy, in terms of containment of data, which even make it much more complicated. So Gartner predicts that by 2027, there would be sanctions on organizations which would come out of processing of data by AI, wherein either some of the privacy principles are violated or the processing is not fair. Now, having said that, there are different new regulations and standards which are popping up across the globe to talk about processing of data by AI applications in a way which should be legitimate, fair, lawful, and the rest. It should not harm anyone in any way. Now, a common consensus is that I think you were referring to, I think there was a question earlier also, with what AI applications are being used in my organization, which means users are free to go to the internet, bring in AI applications, put their data over there, and get quick response. And it's almost difficult to stop somebody from doing their work if they can do it faster. And that's where your shadow IT or shadow AI applications concept comes into the picture. Now, with this, what can happen? Let's say you're using Copilot or Gemini for that matter in your organization. You have authorized your users to do so. But if there's another application which does the same particular task, let's say converting the text from one language to other in a more efficient manner, they'll probably skip using some corporate approved application, go to that application and start using it. And that's where you see data slippage. Some of your corporate data or specific data in the organization is moving into third-party AI. Now, here we again need some sort of governance structure which tells us what is that data, who are those users, what is the critical. And lastly, the AI risks, basically, as we have understood from the room, are related to the processing of data, how they are being processed, who is getting access to what, and eventually getting a view of how much it can impact my organization. Keeping that in mind, I think we have discussed enough about it. We can categorize AI related risks in terms of data into these three categories, which are data related risks, could be data leakage, unauthorized access of data, data being accessible to people who didn't even know that this data is existing. The second one is operational risk. Hallucination is one good example. Misinformation is another good example. Then we have inaccuracies, inconsistencies. I think we have spoken enough about it. And the last one is regulatory risk. Somebody coming and sanctioning that you cannot process this data. And I think in India also, government organizations and certain other organizations cannot use AI for their operations. I want to use a very good example where Indigo can make an AI application accessible to their customers, but cannot use the AI applications themselves. Now, having said that, if we have to draw a risk matrix for the top risks coming out of AI applications where we have likelihood and impact, I think these would be some of the most common or most commonly seen risks as of now. Now, if we talk about all these risks, there are certain other prominent risks which are there. And if you look at the theme of these risks, they are related to lack of governance or accessibility of data, prompt injection, data breach due to AI. Recently, in one of the customer conversations, we found the customer was mentioning that, okay, we have rolled out AI applications in our organization for a lot of users. Now, what's happening is that our base data, the data which is lying in our repositories, whether it's SharePoint or some other site from which the users are getting it, we are unable to control the access on top of that data. Earlier, that wasn't a problem. The data was already there, but users were not able to access it. Now, this has become a gateway for users to be able to access that data in real time, churn that data for inputs, and then get outputs from it. The risk or the impact is multifold. First of all, there's an access issue. The second one is, let's say, I do a lot. I do this a lot that customer conversation, I'll probably ask Copilot, hey, does this work this way? Sometimes Copilot will say, or sometimes Chat GPT will also say, yes, this is available or this is not available. But if you go and validate that, there are certain nuances to the responses that we have got. So that's misinformation or hallucination. Now, here I would like to understand and probably raise this question. How many of you in this room have seen similar challenges while adopting or using AI in their organizations? Any inputs for us or anything that we can double click on? Yeah, we'll get on that. So for shadow AI, how we have approached is we don't block the access by default, but what we have done is we have kept a monitoring layer for everything that is being used in the organization. In addition to that, the data that could be used or would be processed by shadow AI, we protect it at source. We'll discuss about it in some time. And the permissions management part also. Yeah. So that is also where we are keeping a very sharp eye. And this is the same thing that we suggest to our customers also, that even if you have started your AI journey, now you have to hit the road running and you have to fix the stuff. It's like, the car is running, but you are trying to fix the engine also. So you have to fix the permissions, and that is where you have to keep a lot of focus at which data, which user, and then have logging of all those activities so that we can go and mitigate those risks which are arising out of these usage of AI applications. Yes. I I do other things that and with my team, you can know what then sit and decide what you can go to the top. Either. Should I? Before in the rock paralysis. That's a yeah, got it. That's a good question. So we can't boil the entire ocean at once. So we'll have to start small. So wherever your users in the organization, they are using AI applications, start with monitoring what kind of interactions they are doing with the AI applications. Yeah, understanding what kind of interactions they are doing, what kind of data they are uploading, what kind of usage they are doing over there. Based on that, you also, for controlling biasness, you also have to fix the data which is going into the AI application. If the base data is biased itself, then the output produced will be biased. If you're creating your own AI application, sorry, wait, please. Okay, in terms of creating your AI. What? Okay, okay. So if you're using a third-party AI app, I would say that uh, taking care of the data which goes into the AI app is the first step that you can do. If you're creating the AI app in your organization, then nobody is like, sorry, I didn't get that. So you're saying that if I get data, uh right, correct, right, got it. So like any other data activity, even if you, let's say, if you're putting data in some system, there's an ETL phase, right? Wherein you extract, transform, and then load. So it is not very different from that. When you're getting some data and you're supposed to process it, first of all, you have to make sure that the processing that you're going to do on top of that, that is lawful. And secondly, you have to validate that data, at least some sample of that data, check whether it has the right inputs that you want to put into the app where it will be processed. The second thing is you also have to validate it for any personal information. But that's also an angle. You cannot process, especially the data coming out of Europe. You cannot process it without the consent of the data subject through an automated processing mechanism. So you'll have to validate that also. The third thing would be to do some hygiene check and some sanity checks, whether this is fit to produce the output that I'm looking out for. I think these are the things that come, and I don't want to add something on top of this.
These are few things. There are some other things maybe going into technical part as well. Like for example, if I have a AI application that I've built, let's imagine AWS Bedrock, I've built something and I'm using it, and behind I'm using S3 buckets, blob storage, and lot of things. Once the processing clearance of data is done, once the files are uploaded, there should be a malware scan, there should be all that checks that is done on the data itself, the files and everything. Once that is acceptable, then we do a sample testing. Secondly, see, although this Gen AI and lot of we show a lot of robots and everything, once you uncover all the wrappers, there are a lot of models that you can test it out. So you can, what we do at least, we assign individual teams to test out those individual models and then test out the story and then roll it out, kind of. So that's what we do. So of course, the clean, more of the hygiene is the right word, hygiene of the data, then the technical thing, and then the testing list.
Property sucks.
Other app people. Why builds yes, apps. What you can do is there could be a scenario where you have 10 different AI applications in the organization within different functions doing the same stuff. For example, taking inputs from an email box and producing an output in terms of a PDF. It's a very common scenario that is used in a lot of organizations. So, with the low-code, no-code technologies coming in, which helps you create these AI applications, if it's not governed by a process and text in place, what can happen is that you may have a lot of AI applications which may be looking into same data. Some of them may be producing the output that you want. Some of them may not be producing the output that you want. And it also exposes the angle of data, not exploitation, but excess of data, access to data by different applications, which should not be the case in first place. It should be restricted to only those who need it. I mean, need to know and on based on these privilege. So that's why app sprawl is there and data sprawl because let's say if I'm creating a file using Copilot, I go to Copilot and say that, can you summarize this file? It has 60 pages and I create an output file. Now, similarly, if this other person is also, or the other users in the organization are also doing the same thing, we have 10 or 20 different copies of the same data, which may or may not be protected. Okay. Uh, a good practice in this case would be to protect file at source, which is being used to create all these copies and monitoring what all data is being produced out of the source file using the AI application. So that's why data sprawl and app sprawl is there. As much as your data increases in the organization, the liability or the responsibility to protect that also increases in the all right. It's moderate because organizations usually have controls around it. It's not like it's not like that every organization has given access to all the data to everyone. There are certain controls in place. Even if you have permission problem in the organization, it would be due to accumulation of permissions over a period of time. But there are always steps, are always controls in place which would govern that, okay, any unauthorized person should not get access to critical data in the organization. Over the time, you may end up with a permission tree. So there are controls in place. That's why the likelihood is very high. It can happen, but the impact is slightly low because it is not exposed to the entire organization. Yes, yeah, and I did that. Depending on the organization. Yeah. So, for certain organizations, it could be a. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Sorry. So generally, there is a funny example that we use internally in the team. I will share that. So it is like a bowler that we can target. And that does not mean that the bowler cannot take 5 wickets on a day, right? So we can, we can surrender to it. But yeah, usually it is taken care of.
Yeah. Okay. You understand? And the other thing, then, sorry. And he, then, and you said, voice is it. Why there is nothing? Yeah. But, yes. And there is. So usually when we talk about IOCs in terms of threat world, we have TTPs. Okay. But here the IOCs would be what kind of interactions the users are doing. That will become your IOC. We'll have to evolve in the world of AI when we put data into the picture. So the IOCs could be a user who is, trying to, let's take an example of data accumulation. So there is a user who's trying to accumulate data. And in that process, the user usually what it does is they go to some place some information system, download a file. Over a next couple of days, they are using any AI application which you have in your organization to find out where all that data is being kept. Now, how you can find out if this particular user behavior is risky for your organization or not? You'll have to monitor their activities. You have to see what kind of prompts they are passing. We have to see what kind of data is returning from that prompt. And based on that, you'll have to create a profile of the user, that this is a risky profile, this is a non-risky profile, this fall under my baseline, this is beyond my baseline. So that level of monitoring needs to be in place in order to start creating a risk profile of the user. It's a combination, because here we looks for behavioral anomalies, right? Here the behavioral anomalies will not probably fall under the racial boundaries, because there the behavioral anomaly could be, yeah. So you'll have to evolve. Uh,
We do have. So you have an atlas from MITRE will help you to understand the intervals from regarding the entire the attack function, and I would say the entire procedure in exist which will be used by the attacker. So you can refer, and now there is again a bifurcation. I think it's time for that we will look into those bifurcation, that how we can protect it from the platform level, from an LLM apps level, and from a user's perspective, from a user's perspective. This prompt injection is one of the child of the attack. We then look at it back, right? What is jailbreak? Again, a similar kind of an example. And there is an indirect prompt attack. Now, indirect prompt attack is different. It's something that you are doing it via APIs and typically email. So the TTP will be very different, right? So we need to understand the TTP. And as of now, what is available is micro-atlas and OAuth software. And when you look into OAuth software, we will have an LLM hops and NLRs. These are the two things. NLRs is something which we will be using in earlier days. Now, because of Gen AI, we are using LLM hops. So these are the two things which are readily available, which can be usable, and you can track upon the database, not towards the ISS and the way we have an endpoints, right? The file hashes, the IPs. That's something you won't be able, but how one tactics should be there. That's something you would able to uncover.
Hey, I wanted to add some context on that point on decision errors from AI in sensitive areas. So I work in a company by the name Providence. It's a healthcare company. We have implemented AI for a couple of areas, specifically on a where the doctor actually meets a patient. Okay, one of the things is medical transcribing. It is more like passive listening. There's a device that's sitting when the doctor is, talking to the patient, providing consultation. So it only kind of, transcribes only the clinical statements, not hi, hello, how's your son doing and stuff like that. That's number one. And it kind of, creates a summary of what the doctor said rather than the doctor writing it down. The second is, the patient history summarizing. So you have probably in the US, they have the whole life of patient history is available digitally. So there's a good amount of summarizing that is done by the AI in a short note about what the patient history is. So these are the two areas where we have been able to kind of implement AI. The third area where we are trying to, which is basically a challenge to us, is the third area is basically, we call it a clinical decision support system, CDSS. Based on the first one and the second one, we have a rule-based system that actually kind of, calls out the predictive patient journey. As in, like, based on what your today's consultation is and what's your patient history, the clinical pathways, or basically the 3 or 4 areas that the doctor would consult the patient automatically comes out. Now, this is a very rule-based thing that we have developed based on medical journals and things like that. We are afraid to use AI because of a lot of other things, because if something goes wrong, if there is a wrong decision that the clinical journey is actually giving, because it is made in a split second, there is a risk to a human life. There could be a risk to a patient, consultation and a patient treatment. So specifically in the healthcare world, the decision errors from AI in sensitive areas probably to the extreme right. It depends on what exactly is the output that you're getting from there.
You're absolutely right. See, every organization has a different risk profile, and their risk appetite could also be different. So what you're looking at here is a model. I mean, it doesn't fit on every for all the organizations. in your organization, I think it would be on the top right. It could be very high, and the catastrophic impact will be there if something is. I mean, it's life we are talking about. That's right. All right. So how do we fix this? Now we don't have a ready to use answer. There's no silver bullet for this one. But what we have found to be working in our customers and others in our organization also is that you have to start with some hygiene check. You have to get the things in order inside your organization. So the first thing is you have to review what content you are exposing to AI applications, whether it's in-house built AI applications or AI applications that you have procured from outside, and start reviewing the permissions to the set of users who you are exposing the AI application. The second one would be to start identifying any overshared, overexposed data because that may lead to hallucinations. It's a very vague example would be too many chefs spoil the soup. So if you have too many chefs in terms of data responding to one query, this soup may be spoiled. Least access is the best access. Work on this model if it is possible. And I think most of these things are in line with the good data governance practices. Lastly, what we recommend is start classifying and protecting your data access. Now, how it works in our organization is we classify and protect all data access. So whenever we create a new file that is protected. So if, let's say, I'm trying to import that file or get that file processed by an AI application, if it's a third-party AI application, first of all, it cannot access it because my data is protected by something which is only understood in my organization. Only people or personas in my organization can understand it. Let's say if I am accessing it by an authorized or whitelisted AI application, for example, Copilot will go through it and see if I have the permission to look into this particular file and the content of it. If I don't have a permission, it will simply tell me you don't have the permission. I can't tell you more information. If I have the permission, whatever output is produced, it will be protected with the same level of permissions and the same level of security. Let's say if I have access control and encryption implemented on top of that file, the output, whether it's a file or just a textual output, it will be protected by the same level of. Lastly, foster a culture or design collaboration policy in the organization that this is how collaboration should happen. We get a lot from our customers that it's not possible in our organization. We have a particular style of working. All our sharing happen over SFTP, or probably all our sharing happens over USB drives. Or let's say we use some containers that the customer has exposed to us, and we are supposed to upload our files over there. Even in that case, we can find good best practices around collaboration. A good place to start would be to start protecting your data at source and have at least monitoring controls around what's moving out and what's coming in. Lastly, rigorous monitoring and adapting your security controls match with the risk which is exposed in your organization by consumption of AI apps. Lastly, I will give you an overview of how the I'll give you an overview of how we do AI applications in our organization. So we have something, it's not a product demo. I just want to show you what we are using these days. We have something called as AI Hub. And with AI Hub, what we do is we monitor all these transactions. Let's say he's talking to Copilot and we are talking what is the application that it's attached by the AI application or our own AI application. What type of interaction that has to work with AI application. Yeah. And are we able to give something which is not below the baseline or beyond the rules? And as I said, if the baseline keeps on shifting when we talk about AI applications, so are there any adaptive controls in place using which I can predict the organism? So we use something which is called AI Hub, and now it's called DSPM for AI in our organization to give us view of the data which will be processed by the AI application. It also gives us view of who are the personas, whether it's a interactive account or a non-interactive account who is engaging with the AI application. And that your question, sir, it will be a good place to look for those IOSM. Is there any unauthorized persona who's interacting with an AI application and trying to get that data? I don't think it will be a very far-fetched scenario where there is a adversary inside your organization who is interacting with the AI application to get information about your organization. You don't have to depend on living off the land in area. And lastly, you can query your entire environment and see he has done what interaction, process or access what kind of data, what was the sensitivity of that data, and all of that. Lastly, we're going to view something like this, which will tell you that how many total interactions, when those interactions happen, and then you can basically take a call on what sort of control you want to put in. As I said, every organization will have a different approach. Some organizations, probably in your case, since you're healthcare organization, you can be more stringent. You can start blocking. For some other organization, they'll have to be a little bit more liberal. They'll have to start monitoring first and then go ahead. I'll take a pause here. Please let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, yeah, we do have. So, uh, with our ecosystem, the configuration comes by default. So, whatever you are looking at here, what you can, because you can go and click say DLP policy or risk-based monitoring policies by one single click. It will start looking into your organization, see what sort of classification or what sort of data you have, because the data discovery happens over here out of the box for at least the data which is there in the organization. Based on that, we create some monitoring policies initially. They start giving you the keys out of those monitoring policies. It could be DLP policies, it could be insider risk management policy, they could be audit policies. And based on that, in suggestion can start rolling in that you want to create a policy for blocking it. We also have a very tight in this. It's no, it's a data point. It starts with an advisory. It won't block by default. If you say, okay, I want to start blocking and create policies, you can do that. In addition to that, it also comes with a very tight integration with Copilot. So let's say you have got 500 interactions and you want to query, okay, tell me out of these 500 interactions, how many seem to be risky? So be coordinated to the risk forest and okay, these are the user who are risk. So all those things are available, natively integrated, and with a little configuration, they can be up and running. We are not covering those things here in this session because they would be very product specific. We don't want to go into product specific configs. But yeah, those are available already. Yes, sir. Okay. So when you say the integration with the DLP, okay, so whenever we had a chat with any of the vendor and talking about the AI integration, it talks about the rule creation on that. But I think in the organization, there's three places where we can save very important data line. Okay, when it comes to the volume, one is the data lake, one is the SIM, okay, and one is the DLP, which is a very meaningful data get generated out of the incident. Okay. Do we have anything, which will leverage the incident data and give us some predictive models, in the DLP helping the AI? So that would not only help us to identify the data leakage, but at the same time, even internal departments like HR, okay, who can get an information that these are the 10 employees who might be looking outside or yes, probably, chance of their resigning. Okay. And then because this is on their activities and how. So do we have any kind of solution? We have that, sir. So we have that in several, uh, it covers several portions of the overall solution. The first one is we have something which monitors individual interaction and their activities within the organization. It's called a UVBA because, as I said, UVBA monitors the behavior. It will monitor each and every activity if you wish to minister. Okay. And activities which may seem harmless when looked upon in isolation. For example, opening a file or downloading a file. Then you stitch together the story of what the user is doing over a particular period of time. It may paint a different picture altogether. So that is available. It also the enhanced case that you took disgruntled employees or probably the employees who are looking for a way out and they are in the process of collating or collecting some data. Uh, these some of the use cases are available out of the box. The other one is, let's say you don't have a DL2 policy or any monitoring policy in place, but there is an interaction going on or data moves out. So we have something called as DLP analytics, which will help you unravel those insights. These are on the data part, and this is, as I said, that it's available in different areas. So these two are on the data part to help you find out what patterns of data exploitation or what is the another activity which is happening on your backend. On the incident side, the one we want to cover it.
So see, internally what we have done is we have built something called one SOC experience. What it is not a product, but what it means is that, for example, you have a SIM, DLP, CNAP, CSPM, CWPP, EDR, all zero trust pillars, EDR, SASE, your identities, collaboration, everything.
From Microsoft.
No, anything. So yeah, so the thing is, Microsoft is basically it's my son or daughter. Non-Microsoft is my son-in-law or daughter-in-law. I have to treat everyone equally, at least in my level. So we do that. The thing is, the one SOC experience. Coming to the point, the one SOC experience, what it allows you is, for example, it is first of all, it is just an experience, not a product. So what we do is, for example, if we internally we start using one SOC experience from Sentinel itself, I can control everything that is going on in my DLP. Now, in some cases, of course, internally we use Microsoft DLP, but few companies that we have acquired recently uses still with the semantic. So then we are able to control that using that one SOC experience. And identities and everything we bring at one single place. The idea is, I don't know if you have heard about Microsoft Fabric or not. It's a non-security thing. But using Fabric, we are building a graph, underlying graph. And every data can be connected to each other without sending data between the tools. So that is the one SOC experience. I think the sales team has already, they are packaging it and bringing to the market as well. But internally, that's how we are doing and connecting all the dots together at once in the screen. Secondly, I will also take that point also from the intellect. So internally, we have a model that we call the signal model, the traffic signal model, right? So we have something called red, yellow, green. Green means don't tell me, go ahead and do the decision, block it, whatever you want to do. So green is what we have already defined because that does not wake me up in the night or that does not concern anyone. Yellow is take a pause, call me or call the required stakeholder, take the approval, then go ahead. Red is don't do anything, raise it to the right party, they will take care of it. So this is one model that we follow at least on the last question also. And then mostly because I was giving an example that some of the companies, acquired companies, because they have different party, we cannot do anything there. So that's where we follow mostly the red model. Also, maybe I will share one more thing that was not part of the presentation, but I think the points coming up. It is still a concept we are testing in the lab and it is not available in the market anywhere. So if anybody has any ideas, happy to hear. But we are testing out something called hygiene. Okay, AI hygiene. What does that mean? For example, like we all, I'm sure most of us would have got COVID or we say, right, we have cough, cold and everything, but our body kind of builds some immunity. So for example, if I open an incident, one example came up. If I open an incident and 6 months back, for example, Anu has already taken care of that incident. AI should tell me that this incident is a reoccurrence, this is what was done. Basically, you should do this, you should do that, and whatever. Not do it, but at least advise you. Second thing, on the DNP data policy side, it should, like for example, if I am taking an action, random example, it should tell me last time, first of all, this is a sensitive data. Last time you didn't do this. For example, this was not allowed. Are you sure you want to proceed with this action this time? But there should be some immunity. And of course, it is built on history because AI cannot be that smart that it thinks like a human. But this is one concept that we are trying to test it out. Still in labs, very disclaimer, still in labs. But let's see how it does. But at least using what Ravi was covering and to your point as well. So internally, at least in our team, like my team, we have a CDOC team, the 24/7 SOC team in Hyderabad. So at least we are working a lot. Like if I give you an example, last 9 months, I think there has been an addition of 50,000 employees overall in Microsoft in 9 to 12 because of SFI. But my SOC team or my team, especially the DLP team and the data team have not grown at all. So that's how we are trying to optimize with all this model and everything, what we are getting. But this is just an internal example, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have no choice.
Well, so even Microsoft data classification, okay, you introduce the automation in the weather where you actually, brought in the hygiene part in data classification, where users can, look at the data. If they are trying to classify wrongly, they can just give you the pop-up. Similarly, on this line, probably the hygiene can remain AISS.
Correct. So see, thanks for bringing the topic up. Like for example, if you remember 2020, I'm sure everybody would have tried out Zoom and a bit of Teams as well, right? I am openly accepting maybe Teams was not up to the mark in 2020. But the thing is, uh, for security also, what we are trying to do is we are looking at the bigger picture because we don't want it to be like a collaboration call and all thing, right? Now, the reality is classified data, for example, nowadays you cannot share. Even if you share the screen with me, I cannot see anything. So such things where you can collaborate. If you share a file in the chat between you and me, we all can work, we all can edit, still we all can have policies and everything, right? So that's, I'm just trying to show a bigger picture with hygiene, with all this policy, data governance and everything AI have. What we are thinking is we are trying to see what the challenges can be and tie up this entire story because honestly, day to day, on a day to day basis, we are facing that same issue.